As an esports coach and all the players that you're coaching, you guys have a lot of ambitions. You want to reach the next level, get to a higher, bigger stage, and win that competition, win the tournament, and improve your skills further so you can compete with even the best in the world and maybe world stages. In order to get there, the big picture is often clear to us. We have to work hard and work towards that in a more constructive way. But oftentimes when I look around in the esports landscape, and especially within teams, there is a lack of structure in the day-to-day routines and the actions that we put out. How we engage in team reviews, how we engage in team sessions, how we engage in reflections and one-on-one coaching sessions. Oftentimes it's more like when we have grains of sand in our hand, but it slips through our fingers. And we lose our control, our impact, and effectiveness as a coach. So in order to reach your ambitions and to get towards that next level, you need to structurize so you can become more consistent on a daily basis. So in this video, we will cover the framework of coaching that consists of 4 easy to follow steps so you can structurize and become consistent to get your results that you want. So grab a pen and a piece of paper and let's get into it. What is up, guys? My name is Donny from nextlevelesports.com, the #1 platform for esports coaches and team development to help you and your team reach the next level by getting the people side of esports right. So if you clicked on this video and you're interested in esports coaching related content or to help you and your team reach the next level, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you'll be always the first one to be notified when a new content piece is up. I try to post every week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so you get a lot of value to improve your skills as a team member or as an esports coach as well. So with no further ado, let's jump right into the juice of it of this video, the framework of coaching. Let's do a quick introduction into the framework for coaching. So what it all boils down to is to become more structured, and when you become more structured, you become more consistent. When you become more consistent, you can have more consistent and better results. So that is what we are striving for. So one of the effects of being structured is you become, as a coach, predictable. Players know when and where reflections are, one-on-one coaching, if there's a match played, how long or what topics will be discussed in the review over and over again. So if you are not predictable, all the players and yourself as well have to keep thinking about new solutions, new ways of coaching, and every day that it is changing, it spends a lot of energy. And maybe in the beginning, when you're starting off and fresh as a new coach within a team, it can be good to invest a little bit into finding your way into your coaching together with personalities and a team and organization. But after a while, you want to be structured because you don't want to spend all this energy in the middle of a season, how you want to structure a practice or a scrim, or when you want to review, and every single week the whole system and the whole schedule is changing. You want to be predictable because everyone knows what is happening, what the framework is also for them, and within that framework they can have their own freedom and do whatever they want, but they have structure and they know what is expected of them, and they also know how you will react in specific kinds of situations. So this is a very good and positive thing. Be predictable. And when you have this structure and you want to also involve the players, if you have a framework and you have it pretty confined what is doable and what is not doable, you can involve the players as well to maximize this type of time that you have. You can bring in ideas of the players, or you can even let them think if that is what you want to do as a coach, how you want to structure the schedule and the week. So especially in the more amateur scene, you always want to involve your players to set up the structure, what they like, because people have their studies, maybe their work or other passions they want to follow as well. So it's always good to involve them and to make the agreements on how the schedule will look. But maybe if you're in a higher level of esports team, maybe you want to take more charge in how you want to structure the days or the weeks that feels more comfortable for you. So it's up to you to decide. So when you have this structure, you can also use players' knowledge and everyone's knowledge basically to leverage and be most efficient, because you have this kind of process and you know all these pieces. It's like pieces of a puzzle, and you can see for maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks, okay, first we're gonna try this, and then after 3 weeks you have this set or basic structure. But then maybe you notice that players find one specific thing in the schedule difficult or too easy or too laid back, and you want to step it up a little bit and be more accountable towards another, or maybe up your time and intensity in the way you are practicing and training. So those are just like pieces of the puzzle that you can slide on a scale. So okay, we want to have more intensity, more hours putting in, okay, that's what we're gonna do more, and you have more structure, because if everything is so loose, it doesn't really feel like, okay, we're putting in more time, because everything is so random and chaotic. So that is good as well, to use everyone's knowledge by combining it all. And further then is to coach on the needs, because if you have this structure, you don't have to always think about like, okay, what are we gonna do now, what we're gonna do today, or only the thing that is in front of you, or maybe a problem that just arose from the training itself. You don't really have processes. And if you have a structure and you're working towards something with your goals and in day-to-day routines, you can really coach on those needs. You see the patterns because you do the same things over and over. And then you also see like the workings of the personalities, the way they're communicating. But if you change the way you're practicing or the schedule all the time, they have to adopt as well. And it's harder to see patterns of players, yourself, or as a team as a whole. So if you have the structure, you want to create a plan always that is carried by the player or team. And it's not only about the structure, but also the way you handle like meetings and reflections. So you will always want to be effective in the things that you do and the ideas that you have, but you want them to let them come, also being involved with the players. But if you have this specific kind of planning, you think, yeah, this is the way we should do it, then you have to also word it in a way and involve the players that the plan and the actions and the process is carried by the players itself. So it becomes more motivated and inspired by the players alone. And it's not only you in an authoritarian mindset that says what is best for the team. Involve them so they have the support for the team plan as a whole. And once you have this team plan as a whole, you also want to be very clear on what you want, the expectations. So clarity on the goals as well. So we have this meeting and this is the end result, what I want, and this is not what I want, and I think like this is the way we should approach it. And what do you guys think? So that is also very important when you have this structure as a whole, to think about like, okay, what is the end game? What is the result? Just like the big picture, when you are within a tournament, you want to get to the finals and then maybe up it towards the national and international level and so forth as well. You have an end goal, but with every practice, with every team meeting, with every one-on-one coaching, you need and want to structurize your coaching and your team sessions with a specific expectation and goal at the end of the hour or maybe 2 hours that you're interacting with your team or a specific player. So that is important as well. And this also all is some parts and pieces of the framework for coaching. And once you have this structured and get a feel for it, what you want to do, and that everything is clear and expectations are set, and you have a feeling that you are predictable and the players know what to expect as well for you and the organization and as a team as a whole, you have that impact, and you always can go back to the plan, the structure as a safety net where you always can rely on, fall back on to see for patterns and to impact and be more efficient even more. So this is basically a short introduction how the framework of coaching and the output sort of looks like. And now we're gonna jump into the more practical part so you can know and understand and start this structurized coaching for yourself as well. The framework for coaching consists of 4 steps. The first one is to initiate interaction. Think about, as a coach, how you want to initiate the interaction. Do you want to introduce your topic, or maybe a problem, or maybe something that went well with a video clip or voice communication? Do you want to talk about it? Do you maybe even want the players to think about it first and then jump into a conversation or a discussion to evolve it to a next level thing, to get more on point into the specific parts of it? So this is something really, the first step, to think about how are you going to approach this specific kind of problem or topic that you have in mind as a coach. Then if you have these interactions, you want to dig down deeper into the problem of itself. So the topic that you had in your mind, can you involve it even further? Can you make it more clear on what the actual problem is, or what is going well, or maybe something else is going on that needs more attention first? So really get that information from your player or players and understand what they actually need, not what they want, but what they need, because you as a coach want to focus on the processes and the patterns that a team or a specific player is focusing on. So you always have that say, and you can steer like the players and the team, but really understand their point of view in order to really give them what they need in your coaching. So when you pointed out what is the need, that, for example, a problem in communication, or maybe in play style, or something is wrong or something is going well, present a plan of action that you think like this could help as well to tackle this problem or to evolve the things that are going well even further. So you propose this plan, but also want to involve the players, like if they're all okay, so they carry the plan as individuals and as a player. So you come to an agreement, but you always as a coach have the final say, because you probably have more leverage and more like a veto vote in the whole process. Because I assume you are in a coach role that you also want to make decisions, you are in a leadership position. But if you don't feel comfortable with that, making decisions yourself, you can also choose, and that is all good as well, to make the decision with the team, as long as you hold people accountable towards it. So in order to hold people accountable towards it, you get to agreement what you want to measure. Because when you have this plan to, let's say, improve the communication, to improve the mechanical plays, or a specific strategy, how are you going to measure the results? How are you going to measure if you improved on that part, yes or no? If they achieved that goal, if they really put in the time and effort to reach that next level or not. Because oftentimes this is a step that oftentimes I see coaches also miss, because they have a plan, something up, but they have a hard time to measure it because they don't have any specifics to measure upon. And these could be process related, or completionary related, like what are we going to finish, how are we going to show towards another that we are focusing on this plan and we're working towards it. Maybe that's doing 5 times at least this game we use this specific communication language, or we try to gank the top lane, or we make a creative plan, or we improvise, or whatever that may be. Get to an agreement on what are we focusing on that we want to involve. And maybe at first it's a little bit static, but once you keep practicing at it, it becomes more clear that it's applicable in different types of contexts. So if you have it now, these 4 steps, you have the beginning, then you have the core of it all, to understand the needs of the players and then make a plan out of it, and then get to agreement, like how are we gonna see and measure if the agreements and the plans that we've made, if we're really making progress, yes or no, and hold each other accountable. So this consists of every reflection, team session, one-on-one coaching, or team coaching. It is very applicable to many different situations. So let's jump into the more detail of every step so you can become more practical and impactful as a coach. Let's go. The first step of the framework for coaching is to initiate interaction. So you want to be clear for yourself first. What do you want to improve? What is a topic that you want to address? Maybe a problem or something that is going well. what is it that you have in mind that you want to achieve? Once you have that clear and about this topic, you can start with the next question is, how are you going to open up the conversation? Is it maybe with a story that you wanted to tell about a former team, or maybe a dream team, or maybe you want to show them a clip first before you go into the problem that you noticed, so they can experience and go back to the moment of the way they played, that they feel like, oh yeah, this was a bad moment, and you come back to it, so you have more leverage and more understanding from your player's perspective later on, so they understand where you are coming from. What is the way that you are opening up the conversation? Think about that. And then the next step is, how are you going to involve the player? So once you have showed your video material or you told the story, how do you want the players to interact? And they have a couple of options. So you can talk with the team. Now I presented this video. What do you guys have to say about X type of problem? And you might want to have a discussion and let everyone to speak their mind, but maybe from a different perspective. If you have different types of personalities, they're maybe more introverted, more into themselves, and they need more time to think. Maybe you want to start off like, okay guys, this is a problem that we know is here. We just saw it in the clip. I want you guys to take 1 or 2 minutes to write down for yourself where the problem is coming from and what maybe you or someone else or the team has to do in order to overcome this problem. So instead of talking first, you want them to think first. Let them write things down, and then afterwards they have time to let it sink in and find their own words and meaning towards the problem, and then you can open up this discussion to talk again. So this is one of the two most common options, but there's also a third option, and this is do with the team. So for example, if you have let's say a communication issue, you want them to play a specific kind of game, or just to have an exercise ready that you've thought of yourself, and they are gonna do it without you kind of explaining, just doing the drill that they always do, and you write down all the things that they are maybe doing good or they're doing wrong, so you can bring back to it, so they already experience something, whether that's good or that's bad, how that will work. So they are like, oh, I experience it now. Oh, that is what you mean with this particular problem that we talked about a couple of days. So it becomes more clear and evident that the topic or the problem that is at hand is there for us to solve as well. So think about that for yourself and your team as well. How do you want to approach it? So talk, think, or do. And always to have like some examples. For example, the video material, VODs, images that support the specific topic as well. So think about these things, write things down. How do you want to initiate the interaction in the beginning of the team? Now, this sounds like a huge question to think about all these things. Maybe in the first couple of team sessions or coaching sessions, it takes a little bit of time, maybe 5, maybe 10 minutes if you're really taking your time, but don't think like too much. Overthink it too much, because once you get this going, you always get back towards your own skill set, and it's like, okay, how am I gonna initiate this interaction? Do I have a video example? Do I have an image? Do we have some statistics that I can bring up so the players understand what the topic is about, or maybe the problem is about, so we can all together try to solve it moving forward into the conversation. So that is one. Think about very well, how do you want to initiate interactions in any specific kind of context and situation. Then we go to the second step, and that is to understand the need. Once you initiated the interaction with the players, and you evolved it and really understand what the problem is or topic, and everyone chipped in with their thoughts, you want to look at what is the actual need of the players. So you want to really listen, and to also keep your own opinions for yourself in this particular part, and let the players speak, so you can all fetch and collect that information, so you can make the best connections in order to make the plan in the later stage. So when you have a lot of discussion, you want to summarize what the players are saying, and you want to write it down on paper, what they are saying, and also repeat them maybe in your own words, what they meant, so you fully understood them. And if you get to that same level, on being on the same page, then you start to fully understand what the player actually needs and what the problem is. Because oftentimes we assume a lot of things, but in fact it is something more specific, and we waste a lot of time with blah blah and everything around, but we have to really dig down in problems in order to solve them, because we need to get to the core of specific parts in order to really address a specific problem to reach the next level eventually. So after you summarize it, and what has been said by the majority. Do you see patterns in the answers that the players, or maybe the organization, if that is a conversation that you're in, what is the pattern of the answers that they are saying? So maybe it's about like, about a specific player that is slacking or is not motivated, or it's about the communication protocol, or that the process is unclear, or something else. And so you can all agree upon and just summarize and what said the majority. And what the majority said is probably like 90% of the plan that you're going to think about and you're going to present as a coach, no matter what topic it is about. So once you have the 90% plan ready, you also want to think about the minority, the players maybe, or a different opinion that is maybe 180 degrees different towards what the plan states. But also think about the majority, and within esports it's always better to make somewhat faster decisions than to make a conversation go on and on and on for hours. Because sometimes you have to just make a decision, what the majority said, and that is what we're going to do. But in order to get the plan supported by everyone is to add the wisdom and the knowledge of the minority. So the opinions that are against maybe the plan, what part of that can you maybe add on? Or maybe when you have the majority plan, is there something that you have to change for them as well? Maybe a tiny little bit, so they can hop on the train as well, and you're off to the races, and the whole team agrees and is on the same page in how we move forward. Because sometimes you don't have to agree with everything, as long as the majority accepts it and adds a little bit of the minority as well, their knowledge and their wants and needs from time to time. It's not always possible, but to get them on board as well, so you can move forward. So now you fully understand the need and you can make and build a plan. Step 3, propose a plan of action. So now you gathered all the information of the players and the topic that you wanted to talk about, or maybe it evolved into something more specific or more clear that needed attention. With all the information out there and laid out, you can now start to make a plan. So you propose a plan of action with the input of the player. So while you are seeing and observing and writing down all the answers of the players, and you try to think about it in your head, you want to propose to your players a plan, a direction, because you as a coach are oftentimes the leader of the pack and you guide them in the right direction. So you say the plan, okay, with all the information I gathered, I see this is the majority vote and we add this little minority knowledge as well. So I propose this is a plan and this is how we're going to move forward from now on. And to summarize it, once again, what the whole plans look like, you can lay it out more in detail or maybe more conceptual, abstract way. So you also want to focus on like, in what does it all boils down to? So you get a clear shot at what is the exact reason what the plan does. What is the result that we want to achieve with this plan, right? So you want to also say like, it all boils down to when we execute on this plan, it boils down to that we achieve this or that, or maybe X, Y, Z. So you can be more precise in this particular way of presenting a plan. But when you have this plan, depending on the personalities and the way the topic is related towards a problem or something else that popped up during the conversation and interaction with the players, you need to lay some different types of accents on the specific plan. So sometimes you need to have it very practical. Sometimes teams can be very inside their head, being creative and making all these kinds of complex plans or drafts in League of Legends, or the way they should execute something in CSGO, and it can be too complex. But sometimes you have to make it practical, focus down into one specific part that is specific, instantly doable, and concrete, something that you can act upon and is very easy to set into action. Or you need to have more explanation of the logic behind that plan, how it makes sense. So why do we do this? It makes sense that we do this process because this is the end result. result. Especially I have people that are more like debaters, for example, that like to discuss things or want to stay on the right path or want to get into the right. It doesn't really mean like to get right, but to see what is right. And adding logic towards it is oftentimes a good way if you're dealing with such type of personalities or with different types of situations, to add that piece of logic. And then also the influence. So sometimes when it's about communication or a fine line between relationships as well between the team, sometimes you have to put on the accent of the interaction between the players. So how is person A and person B communicating? And if you implement this type of idea, what will be the effect of the player? Are they still feeling safe? Are they still feeling respected within the team? Are they still be able to present themselves as a person and human being as they are? Or is it maybe not so the case, that it's just more so a task that they have to execute upon? In different types of situations, you have to make the decision where the accent is. And influence is one of them, for more so the feelings and the relationships and the connection that people with each other have. So, and the last part is sometimes you don't really have to make it practical when there's a system in place or the way to think as a team. It is sometimes enough to keep it global and abstract. So the way it is the concept that we want to achieve, the global or future. So for example, if we have a plan and we're playing too scared in particular types of situations, or we have the tendency to play scared in matches or in scrims. So we can lay out this whole plan and we talk about it inside like this conversation or the team session or the review. But what it all boils down to is the abstract part, like we need to make the play or take the risk. And that is basically the concept of it all, like the thing that stands above it all, that pretty much summarize it in maybe one word or maybe a short or one or two sentences, what it all boils down to. So depending on the situation, how you want to coach, you can give guidance on putting different accents on the way you coach and leading the conversation and the direction of the plan, what is suitable for that type of situation and context. Now you laid out your whole plan and you put on your accents towards where you want to give the direction to in order to execute on this plan. But we're not done yet. The fourth step is to get to agreement. How we're gonna measure it, because the plan you proposed is to improve something, right? You want to improve your communication. You want to improve the way the scheduling is. You want to improve the way people hold each other accountable and so forth. It can be anything. But in order to improve something, you have to measure it. So when can you tell the team that they improve something? You have to hold someone on something inside the process accountable. So you need to agree upon like how you're gonna measure the results. And you have two decisions there. We have process goals and completion goals. So the process goals is more so the goals that you set for yourself or maybe a particular player that takes a bit more time, and you know it's like maybe a communication skill or a process that is somewhat big that is not able to act upon and to fully get to the team and really understand what it is, how to execute on the plan in maybe one or two practices. So it needs to be leveraged over more scrims, more practices, or maybe even more team sessions. So process goals are things that are always ongoing that you keep an eye for. For example, the way they're communicating, the way they're interacting with each other. And if you want to improve that, on what kind of parts of the process or interactions are you going to look out for? And if you keep that in check, the process goals, eventually it will improve. But it's not like a set time and date when it needs to be improved. You can set a goal. For example, communication should be improved in 3 weeks. Maybe that is realistic. And after 3 weeks, by holding people accountable and coaching on that specific process part, you evaluate how far you are and how far you have come with the communication part or with the team development or whatever topic you're talking about and want to improve on as a team. So that is one thing. The process goals are more long-term and ongoing. Then we have the completion goals that are able to be checked off at the end of the training or session. So for example, you have a meeting and the end result is to have a schedule in place for the upcoming season, or an agreement of everyone's input and intensity in putting in the hours and time. So yes, we make the plan. Yes, we want to have intensity and do everything what we can, but do everything what we can is different for every player. So how are you going to measure that intensity and putting in the hours and effort of every player? It doesn't mean you have to do something, but it's just an example to explain how you can use this framework for coaching. So if you have this completion goal of setting the intensity, for example, for players at the beginning of the season, so what does it mean? And how can I hold you and myself and the team accountable if you put in enough time and effort? Well, maybe it's about like, well, we have this plan, but I feel like intensity is if we do the scrims and practice, but at least practice 10 hours alone individually with solo queuing or developing ourselves, watching demos or reviews or whatever that may be. And then you can hold each other accountable when you look into their accounts, if did they play enough, and then you can say like, oh, we made this agreement, but this is something I have to check up on. Because if this is every week the case, then you are putting the right intensity and we have nothing to complain. But sometimes players are not motivated or lacking, and you have something to hold them accountable, and not like in a negative way, but to start off a conversation and to initiate an interaction again and to start this cycle again about the coaching framework. So you have a lot of options as well how you can complete those goals. So another option is, so if you want to improve for, let's say, communication, and it's an ongoing process and it's a process goal, but you can also say it can become one part of it is a completion goal. So for one example is when we are playing the game, out of the 3 games that we are playing tonight, at least 2 of them, I want to have this communication protocol that we just made in the plan that has been perfectly executed by everyone at least 75% of the time. Every round. So you have still having the process goal that's still ongoing and everyone is doing their thing and maybe it's hard, but it's not about like the results of winning or losing that game, but it's about winning or losing that practice or that match by following the process, and you can check it off. So what does it do? It helps you to hold players accountable if they're missing the mark, yes or no, but always there is a sense of progression. So it doesn't really matter in that case if you win or lose that prac, because you feel that you are improving. Everyone is chipping in their effort and their time that they want to improve their communication 75% of the time. That is the goal for this prac and this match or this situation that you are in, instead of winning or only feeling like, oh yeah, I'm enlightened. It's something that you can check off, so you can say as a player, or especially also as a coach, for you to say like, guys, even though we lost, we really had a good practice, but because we checked off all the goals that we wanted to say, that gives me a good feeling that we are improving and that we are making progress. And if we keep at it in 1 week or in 2 weeks, we should beat this team or that team, or we are able to win more games because we're doing the process things right. And then also the players start to notice like, hey, yeah, we're improving. We're working towards something, but in a structured way. And all these steps are building upon the structure, being predictable, knowing what the players and you as a coach can expect and how you can bring structure to everything as a whole. So that is it, the 4 steps for the coaching framework. And this last step was get to an agreement. So there you go. A quick summary once again for the framework for coaching is: number 1 is initiate interaction. How are you going to present your topic? What kinds of tools are you going to bring towards the table? Is that images, maybe video material? How are you going to initiate interaction with your players? Is that through talking, maybe thinking first and then talk, or maybe having an exercise ready so everyone understands what you are wanting to prove towards them, what maybe needs to be improved, or something that is difficult still for the players to work again. So think about how you're gonna engage with the players every time in every coach situation. Once you hear that interaction, you try to understand the needs. You do this by summarizing the players' input and their thoughts and their feelings, what they are saying. Once you collect this, you summarize it well and you propose a plan of action. So with all the dots connected, you go towards more the majority vote. How is the majority thinking that needs to be done or improving? And if there's something that is maybe the opposite, maybe one person or one player is opposed towards the plan, try to also get that individual person on board by maybe making one slide, 1 or 2 tiny adjustments so he carries the plan as well, to have something to work on as well. And then the last part is to get to an agreement. Once you got a plan, that is very good, but oftentimes it stops here in the current esports world. But you have to hold each other accountable and you have to measure something in order to see and know and feel if you have improved, yes or no. So get to an agreement. What are the points of measurement that you can hold people accountable on? Is that maybe the intensity of hours that they are going to play, or when you're working with the communication protocol, how many times in this particular practice you want them to succeed in this following step-by-step process at least a couple of times. So it's not the focus on winning or losing a practice match or a scrim, but it's about succeeding the plan, that we're making improvements. So everyone feels like, oh, even though we lost, it was a good practice because we structurized it, we improved it, and we got all the check marks for today's practice and match possibly. So that really brings you as a coach a lot more powerful and structurized way of handling esports teams as a whole, or maybe individual practices as well. So there you go, the summary of the framework for coaching. And that is it, guys, for this video. I really hope you took a lot of lessons from this video and it brought you some value. If it did, please consider hitting the like button and hitting the subscribe button as well with the notification bell, so you'll be always the first one to check on new content of Next Level Esports to help you and your team reach the next level by getting the people side of esports right. So thank you once again for watching. Leave a comment below what you think and what you maybe need in order to succeed as a player, as a team manager, or as an esports coach. It doesn't really matter. I really want to provide content and value for you guys. So if you have suggestions, please hit me up and I will get back to you as soon as possible. So thank you once again for watching and see you guys next time. Bye bye.